Twilight gets a puppy. By TDR. Poster's note. Okay, I seem to have made a error. The error seems to be in the chapter numbers. Not sure what happened or how it happened. So I am moving on. If I find out what happened, I may be dropping a older chapter. I will put it in the right place and number it as a 0.5 or something like that. You should see it in my post if you are playing this story as I post it. P.S. It made my brain hurt trying to find out what happened. End of poster's note. Chapter 40. Boast Barkers. Part 1. 1 week after the last episode, Golden Oaks Library. Come on Chui, you got this. Spike encouraged, practically bouncing in place. Right, here it goes. Twilight muttered, her horn glowing softly. Ross stood back from the pair, simply watching, just in case there were any magical mishaps he would have to clean up. Given Spike's resilience against magic and physical harm, he was often used as a test subject for new spells or practice. Sure, he protested most of the time, but he could easily be bribed with ice cream. Granted, so could Twilight. Ross was the only one immune to the sweet treat, though when he had found out that Prince Blueblood's magic tasted like French vanilla ice cream, he had bothered the poor unicorn for months. He still preferred Cadence's magic, though the magic in the apples from Sweet Apple Acres was a close second. Ross blinked at the faint pop that sounded in the air and the black furred mustache that appeared on Spike's upper lip. He whistled appreciatively. Matter creation like that was a rare ability, one Twilight had not been able to perform before she came to Ponyville. The spell formula she was using was a common one for higher-level casters, or those who specialized in that sort of thing. It turned Ramana into a physical object, in this case, a mustache. The effect wouldn't last forever, perhaps only lasting a few weeks or so depending on the skill or the power of the caster. That was still long enough that he would need to watch out for his brother trying to sneak into a movie theater for a movie he shouldn't be old enough to see. Haha, you did it. Spike cheered. Woof. Ross added. Right, 25 spells you couldn't do before, that's awesome, and this is the best one so far. Spike grinned, looking in a nearby mirror and playing with the mustache. Hello ladies. The trip to Canterlot had been rather uneventful. Despite seeing Celestia to recover the scrolls and meeting Princess Luna, none of his questions had been answered anyway. It was clear that Princess Celestia worried about Twilight while she was out of the castle, but the talk with her brothers eased the princess's mind about their sister's mental state. The other element bearers were a surprisingly good influence on her, despite all of them having their own issues. Ross felt that he and Spike would need to watch all of them being the only sane and rational ones of the whole group, despite the fact his brother was 12 and he was constantly getting yelled at for clawing up the bookcases and chewing on things. The subject of Twilight and Ross's increase in power was not brought up in the conversation with the princess. Twilight wanted to run more tests to make sure it wasn't a fluke and had only asked the princess for all the information she had on the elements of harmony, something Celestia was expecting anyway once her student settled in. Currently Twilight was testing a number of the spells she had failed to pull off before, and so far she had accomplished all of them with barely an effort. Sorry Romeo, with as attractive as you think you look, that's just practice and it needs to go. Twilight chuckled, her horn lighting up as Spike flailed, trying to protect his new mustache, only for Twilight's magic to dissolve it. Rats. Spike grumbled. Woof. Ross asked. Why do dragons and serpents love mustaches? Spike retorted to his brother's question. 'Cause they're freaking sweet. Asterisk. Ponyville proper. So why have you had so much trouble with these spells before? Spike questioned. They all seemed pretty simple and I have seen plenty of ponies using some of them. Yes, but not all of them. A unicorn whose talent is focused on one thing, like being a barber, would have a easier time learning that creation trick, and the power needed wouldn't be that much either. A cutie mark can not only be a hint at what a pony might be good at, but it can also improve that talent to the point that they would be better at it than any pony else, who doesn't have a fitting mark, in that field. So basically you couldn't do those tricks before cause your talent wasn't connected to any of them. Spike pondered. Woof, Ross added. Well, I suppose you could say my cutie mark talent lies in magic, though there are some who don't follow what their mark suggests or they interpret it in a different way. Sometimes that interpretation is enough to change the mark's entire meaning as well as what skills might get boosted. Twilight pointed out. Miss Cheerly, for example, has a cutie mark of flowers, though she's interpreted them as smiling students soaking up knowledge like a flower soaks up the sun. And it seems to have worked for her as she's considered one of the better teachers around if the awards I saw in her office were any indication. Might explain why Rarity makes dresses and has gems as cutie marks. Spike pondered. Bork. Ross smirked. I doubt her talent has anything to do with attracting dragons to her but, Ross. That's all Spike anyway. Twilight deadpanned as Spike glared at his siblings. Gangway, shouted a voice coming through. Spike and Twilight both yelped as a pair of unicorn colts barreled between the group, impacting Spike and starting to carry him off, or they would have had Ross not whipped around and grabbed both of them by their tails. The sudden stop didn't seem to bother either of them as they kept running in place as Ross held them, though Spike fell off the short fat one's head where he had gotten stuck. Snips? Snails? What are you doing? Spike winced as he stood up, dusting off looking at them. Oh wow, Spike, you're like really fast to keep up with us, and you're not even breathing hard. Snails stated, still running in place. Ross frowned and looked at Twilight, who rolled her eyes. While they were both happy Spike was making friends his own age, they were less than thrilled he made friends with these two. Snips and Snails were known as the dumbest colts in town. They were not mentally handicapped, though Snails was a little slow on the uptake. They were just intentionally dumb, not able or willing to keep the slightest bit of common sense in their heads at all, let alone the slightest bit of knowledge that they didn't care about personally. It drove Twilight crazy that there were ponies that were this willfully ignorant around even as young as they were, and it annoyed Ross because if Spike was anything other than a dragon, their lack of common sense would have gotten his brother hurt, a lot. Still, neither of them were going to tell Spike he couldn't have them as friends. The young Drake was more than smart enough to see their flaws, and often he kept whatever trouble they got into from escalating further. Usually. Well, haven't you heard? There's a new unicorn in town. Snails stated, stopping his running. Yeah, they say she's got more magical powers than any other unicorn ever. Snips chimed in. Ross let go of their tails as they stopped running and glanced back to Twilight, who raised an eyebrow at their statement. No way, that title goes to Twilight. Spike huffed. Where is this unicorn? Twilight asked. In the town square. Snails said before rushing off again. Come on. Snips yelled, running off again himself. The trio looked at each other, then followed along. Asterisk. Ponyville Square, in front of Town Hall. A large crowd had gathered in front of a gaily decorated wagon that had been parked in front of the town hall. The trio found their way over to the front where the rest of Twilight's new friends had gathered to see what the fuss was. Come one, come all. Come and witness the amazing magic of the great and powerful Trixie, a pre-recorded voice boomed from some hidden speaker in the cart, rolling the R's a little too hard in the name. As the announcement ended, the side of the cart unfolded, springing out into a stage and revealing the hidden speakers. The stage suddenly exploded with smoke and fireworks, the effects clearing to reveal a pale blue mare with a white and blue mane wearing a purple cloak and wizard's hat festooned with stars. The crowd looked on in awe. Rainbow Dash, Rarity, and Applejack looked on in annoyance. Spike looked on with a frown at this upstart who thought she was better than his sister. Twilight looked on with interest, taking note of the mare's use of Quid's theorem for the stage and simple fireworks triggered by magic and guided into a particular shape to conceal her entrance onto the stage. Ross looked on with a wide smirk, because he recognized the mare. This should be fun. Author's note. I had an idea with this one, and I'm gonna run with it. End author's note. End chapter 40. Boast Barkers. Part 1.